Hey, all, come on in, have a seat. I'm just changing my shoes here.
And I'm Leia.
Oh, wait, okay. Oh, my name isn't just changing my shoes. I'm Brandon.
Yeah, Brandon, why are you changing your shoes? And why are you so sweaty?
Oh, yeah. Well, Leia, you may notice my voice might sound a bit scratchy. It is feeling a little bit rough. I mean, hopefully it doesn't really sound that way for the sake of our listeners.
Okay, Brandon, come on. Answer the question, all right?
Right. Okay, yeah.
Why are you so sweaty?
Yeah, no, I get it. Okay. Before we opened the lobby, I used to exercise every day. And that typically included a mile run each day. Well, when we started the show, I gave that up because it's a lot of work. But we've kind of gotten into a whole groove, so I'm back on it, baby.
Well, great. Good for you. I mean, you went for a run today. That's awesome.
Yeah, I feel accomplished.
Great.
Except I feel like I might have pushed myself too hard on the run and, the breathing and all that. I got to get used to the rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
So my throat is feeling a bit sore. This movie in particular had me all inspired because of the title.
Mm-hmm.
And I think despite the fact that I'm taking off my running shoes, I think everyone else should put their running shoes on as we chat about
Running Scared.
May I help you?
I'm looking for Oleg.
Oleg. You must have the wrong address.
No, he's a 10-year-old boy. He's pale. He never smiles.
Running Scared, a 2006 dark action sort of adventure-ish kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Boom! We open with a gunshot, and a man hurries out of a diner carrying a child in his arms. They get in a slick-looking convertible with panic plastered all over their faces. Speeding down the road, Brian O'Connor puts the pedal to the metal as we see the child's blood covering a shirt. Wait, let me just put this car in reverse real quick. There. Joey Gazelle, played by Paul Walker. Brian O'Connor is his Fast and the Furious character.
Mm-hmm.
Joey Gazelle, played by Paul Walker, careens carelessly down the road in a panic as Oleg, played by Cameron Bright, sits in the passenger seat afraid at the lack of caution that the driver is displaying. Suddenly, we leave the action behind in favor of a quiet hotel room where drugs are being packed by some gangsters.
Aw,
so serene.
yeah.
It's like
You really paint a picture, Brennan.
ASMR for the drug
Dealers?
addict soul. Here we see Joey again, standing stoically in his tough guy role amongst his fellow mob squad mates and a few of his bosses. Another boom! And the door is kicked open. Bandits in ski masks burst in, guns at the ready, demanding everyone on the floor and guns thrown aside. They begin packing up drugs and money when one of the mobsters gets plucky. A knife is drawn, a heel is cut, and bullets start to fly. Losses are taken on both sides. Testicles are taken on one side. The skiers make a hasty retreat, and the mobsters are left to lick their wounds when it's discovered these are no ordinary powder hounds.
Fuck me. He's a cop.
In the getaway car, the dirty guns are given to Joey to dispose of.
Take this shit and get rid of it. And do me a favor. Don't fuck it up.
And the day goes on despite the nefarious deeds. At home, Oleg is playing a friendly hockey match against Joey's son, Nicky, in the Gazelle's basement. Roughhousing gets a bit out of hand, and we discover Oleg is a victim of domestic abuse. Finally home, Joey gets fresh with his wife, Teresa, played by Vera Farmiga.
Come on, I'll be quick and real quiet. Come on.
Quiet, I don't think so. Quick, I can't believe.
As she tries to freshen the laundry, and he heads to the basement to stash the dirty firearms. The boys, however, look on quietly from a hiding spot so as not to get scolded by Joey. Joey doesn't look too favorably on his Russian next-door neighbors. Nicky sneaks Oleg out, and the Gazelles sit down to dinner. In the next house over, we see Oleg's home life. It's dirty, dark, and depressing. A man who happens to be Oleg's stepfather, Anzor, sits watching the John Wayne film The Cowboys, as he implores desperately for the Duke to survive his fate this time.
Come on, man. Make it different this time.
To not die, as happens in the film every time. In between sobbing pleads, his wife, Oleg's real mother, Mia, brings him dinner, pizza, which happens to not be to his liking.
It's thick crust, you damn blyat.
So he physically assaults her and slings disparaging words her way. What a guy, huh? Next, in Anzor's fit of madness, he sets his sights on Oleg. Seemingly calm, he talks about the 10-minute version of the Cowboys he saw as a child in Russia.
I was 9 years old. I didn't know how long movies were supposed to be. My version of the cowboys, it was only 10 minutes long.
The version where the Duke never dies. In the middle of this diatribe, Oleg dismisses any potential bonding by intentionally being contrarian and pissing off Anzor.
This part's better.
Without the Duke?
In retribution, Anzor declares that Oleg no longer eats in his house. Mia pleads to be merciful and allow Oleg to eat, as he kinda needs to, being that he is indeed a human being. Responding with violence, as is the only way he knows how, Anzor takes to more physical abuse. Oleg decides he's had enough of his wicked stepfather and pulls a gun on the man. Another boom! And dinner in the Gazelle's house is disrupted as a bullet flies through the window. Joey takes to action and hurries next door, ready for the lifestyle he knows as a mob tough guy. He finds Anzor shot and Oleg missing.
Oleg, what are you trying to say? Oleg shot you?
What are you? You fucking idiot. I didn't do this to myself.
Anzor describes the gun that Oleg shot him with, and Joey realizes what has happened. Oleg somehow took the gun Joey was tasked with disposing of and shot his stepfather with it. Now, Joey understands he needs to find Oleg.
That kid's out there right now. The cops are on their way. If they find the gun, or they find the kid and he talks, I'm dead.
His life is now on the line. The great chase is afoot, and since my legs are tired from a run, let's just hang out here instead while Joey risks life and limb and Oleg travels through a surreal world of mystery, fantasy, and darkness.
I'm super proud of you for showing some initiative. Maybe I'll even come to your graduation.
Okay, Leia, time for you to take the lead, right? Lead us through this little journey. Where are we going?
Well, let's start with director Wayne Kramer,
Uh-huh.
a South African filmmaker.
Yeah, indeed.
First began directing with the 1992 film Blazeland,
Yeah.
which was never completed. And Kramer since commented that the process was an absolute nightmare from beginning to end, and that he has no plans to finish or to release the film.
All right.
So we won't
Very
be
good
seeing
then.
that one.
I think most first projects for most directors is pretty much a nightmare.
Most,
as they kind of get
with the
used to
exception of Kevin Smith.
things. Well, of course, yeah.
He didn't want to stop.
Yeah, no, it seems to be.
But his first official release was The Cooler. It was selected for a competition in the 2003 Sundance Film Festival.
He followed that up with Running Scared, another movie called Crossing Over. He was a writer on the film The Mindhunters.
Mm-hmm. Which he said they just took apart. Was
Yeah.
like nothing like he had written when he started. But
Yeah, he even deemed it unfortunate that his
Yeah.
name was associated with it.
Yeah,
He said that
that's
it
pretty
was,
sad.
the credit was thrust upon him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then he was the director for a film called The Pawn Shop Chronicles.
Yeah. There's not a lot of information about Wayne Kramer, I noticed.
No, not really.
There's a lot of interviews that are done, but it's really strictly kept to the movies that he's
Mhm.
talking about. You don't really get to know him as a person very
Not too
yeah.
much. He was a naturalized U.S. citizen in 2000. And I think a reason that a lot of his personal information gets lost among the weeds is because there is not a famous musician, but there's a rather renowned musician by the name of Wayne Kramer also, who in a lot of internet searches gets most of the results.
That when I first typed in Wayne Kramer, that's who came up. And I'm like,
yeah.
musician? He's a musician? And I looked at the picture and I was like, that's
no,
not him.
Totally different guy.
Huh.
And it turns out that guy, I believe, had passed away just recently too.
Oh,
so
really?
yeah, his name is kind of dominating the headlines as
Right.
it
Well,
seems to
unfortunate
be.
for Wayne Kramer,
Yeah.
the director.
I think so. But he also hasn't done a whole lot since Pawn Shop Chronicles, and I think that was 2013.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. I seen The Cooler, and of course, Running Scared was just absolutely
Yeah,
phenomenal.
love
So
it.
more like that would have been kind of cool.
I agree.
So let's move on from Wayne Kramer. Let's talk a little bit about Paul Walker.
Might as well get the lead role.
Paul Walker was raised in a Mormon family, which I thought was really interesting.
I also was raised in a Mormon family.
Yeah, well, and that was part of the reason I thought it was sort of interesting because you guys have kind of a similar upbringing.
Sort of, yeah.
He also, though, did go to, I think, a Catholic school for a little while.
Yeah.
And so he's dabbled in a lot of religious type stuff. Before his death, he even was non-denominational, Catholic, I think, or something like that. I don't know how that works,
Yeah.
but he was still involved in religion. So
Yeah, my mother was Catholic when I was born.
Mhm.
We got kicked out of the Catholic Church. Whoopsie daisies.
Oh, c'est la vie.
No skin off my back.
He was a Pampers model at the age 2.
I can see why. I mean, that sounds a little awkward. Sorry. As an adult, he's a very handsome man.
Yeah, I'm sure as a child he was adorable.
I'm sure he was.
He was also in Showbiz Pizza commercials. I don't know if a lot of people remember Showbiz Pizza.
Oh, I love Showbiz Pizza.
But I loved Showbiz Pizza.
Yeah. Contrast to Chuck E. Cheese.
Wasn't it with the bear?
Yeah.
The Jamboree band.
Yep,
and
that's right. The competitor, when the guy who... Oh, that's... never. I'm not going to get into that
Fun
story.
fact,
That's not what this is.
Fun fact, there is still one in the
Is
state
there
of
really?
Wisconsin that is open.
A Showbiz Pizza?
Yep. So it's not... I don't think it's
Wow.
still officially the brand,
Mhm.
but they reopened one with all of the stuff from it as kind of like a museum. But you can
That's
go there and eat
really
pizza.
cool.
And yeah.
Huh.
So it's still a Showbiz
That's neat.
Pizza
Wow.
alive today.
I know people can get a hold of the Showbiz Pizza mascots.
Yeah.
Readily available. Not readily. You can't just go like, oh, I'm going to go shopping and get all of
Go
them.
to Walmart and
But
buy one.
Through many auctions, you can get them.
Huh. He's been on TV for
a long time.
A very, very long time. He also attended several colleges. He majored in not theater, but marine biology, which I wanted to be a marine biologist so
did.
bad when I was little, but it didn't pan out for me.
Nah.
So good for him. I'm glad he stuck with his dream
Yeah.
of wanting to be a marine biologist. But with those looks and that acting ability, it just
different
wasn't
route
in the
came
cards
about.
for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't in the cards. I mean, in the 90s, he was pretty popular on television soap operas
Oh, yeah,
like
for
The Young
sure.
and the Restless. He was in Charles in Charge, Who's the Boss, Touched by an Angel.
Yeah, a lot of those big tentpole 90s.
A lot of those big
TV
ones. Yeah, and it was like a show here,
Yeah,
a
a
show
little episode
there.
here or there.
Yeah. He got his start in film, though, in 1986 in B-horror flicks.
Yeah.
Some of them I want to mention because I thought they were kind of interesting,
Sure.
but one of them was a horror comedy called Monster in the Closet.
Yeah.
And then a year later, he starred in The Retaliator. It's a science fiction film. And then in 94, he starred in Tammy and the T-Rex.
Tammy and the T-Rex. Yeah. I've seen it one time.
Have you really?
I don't know if I'll ever go back and watch it again.
Did you see him in it?
I don't recall seeing
No?
him in it because
Okay.
at the time he was not on my radar of
Sure.
someone
It
to watch
was 94, yeah.
Yeah.
The B-rating type horror flicks that he was in didn't really last very long. Once he starred in the Fast and Furious franchise in
Yeah.
2001, that's what I think everybody knows him
That's where
from.
everyone knows him. The first time I recognized him was in Pleasantville because, Leia, he was handsome in that movie. I mean, not that he's not handsome everywhere else, but
Right.
he was intentionally made the handsome
The
guy.
handsome guy, yeah.
Hearts in your eyes kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he also was in Varsity Blues.
Oh.
I'm going to admit this right now. I've never seen Varsity Blues.
Michael Scott would be very upset.
I think so. I think he would. It's a sports ball movie. And
Yeah.
I think the only sports movie I've ever watched and enjoyed was Any Given Sunday.
I liked
Oh, you know what? Sandlot.
Sandlot. Well, that's
Also
not
like
technically
Sandlot.
a sporty movie. I liked the film with the women in the baseball.
Oh, yes. Okay. How did I forget about
that's a
that
really
one?
good one.
A League of Their Own.
League of Her Own. Yeah, that
Yes.
was a really good one. And then I
That's
liked
awesome.
Field of Dreams too,
Field
but
of-
that was one
okay,
I
yeah.
watched when I was a
So
kid
I've-
with my mom.
I've liked a lot of sports movies. Damn it.
Yeah, they have to have a good story.
They
I'm not
do.
into sports movies just to watch sports.
No, not for the
Um,
tension of the sports. It's
They
not
got to
my
have a
thing.
good story,
Yeah.
dialogue.
The
to
drama surrounding the sports, just not my style.
Nah.
And he also was in the Pawn Shop Chronicles,
Oh,
which
right.
Wayne Kramer had directed. So-
Yeah. Well, Wayne Kramer really liked him, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah, he tried to stick him in as many of his projects as he could.
Yeah. Aside from the acting that he's been doing, he also starred in the National Geographic Channel series Expedition Great White, which actually fulfilled a lifelong dream where he spent 11 days tagging great white sharks.
Marine biologist.
Mhm. Yep. He wanted to do that so bad.
Yeah.
And so he finally got to do that.
Well, you know what else he really wanted to do but never got to?
What?
He auditioned for the role of Anakin Skywalker.
He did.
He did. And he is quoted as saying that was the only role he really, like all capitals, really wanted.
Was he a closet nerd or an out there nerd?
That I don't know. I don't know his nerd
He sounds a
cred.
little closeted because I didn't read anything else about his nerdiness.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
think he
I
was
didn't read a
he's
whole lot
nerd.
there either, but he's a car nerd.
He is
so
a
that's-
huge car
So that's
nerd.
I do have to say he was considered too old for the role. So
Oh,
he didn't
well,
get that.
yeah, I could see that. Yeah, he is a huge car fanatic. If anybody doesn't know, like, how he died in a car wreck.
Yes.
He was at
2013.
Yep, in November 2013. He and a friend, Roger Rodas,
Mhm.
were at a charity event, and they left the charity event. The Porsche Carrera GT they were driving, they were going about 80 miles per hour when they took a turn and then ran into a pole. One of them died instantly. Paul didn't die instantly, but he died from the flames afterwards, which is really sad and scary and really, terrible. The only reason I bring that up is because he actually owned his own company called Always Evolving, a Valencia high-end vehicle performance shop.
Oh, wow.
And the gentleman that he was in that road crash with was the CEO of the company, and they're pretty good friends. So
it was really sad when he passed away. I mean, at the time, of course, he was the Fast and the Furious guy. And, you know, your mileage, pun intended, will vary with that series.
Yeah.
I admit in the early part of that series, I didn't particularly care for it. But now that it's way over the top and they're sending cars into space and all that shit, I'm liking that series.
Yeah. It's like borderline high-end B action.
Yeah, it definitely is, except it's got a, like, A+ budget behind it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I bet we'll end up talking about him another time.
Yeah,
in the future,
probably. When we do the whole Fast and Furious thing.
10 weeks in a row.
Get ready, guys.
Yeah, strap in.
I have next here Cameron Bright. I read a lot about Cameron Bright, but it was mostly about just like some of the movies he's been in.
Yeah.
He's been in a lot of famous movies.
Mm-hmm.
He was in controversial film Birth, Thank You for Smoking. He was in Stargate SG-1, which I absolutely love, so I had to bring that one
Stargate,
up.
for sure, absolutely.
He was in Ultraviolet. He played Leech in X-Men.
Yeah, he did. He was a
That's pretty cool.
Pivotal mutant character.
Yeah, he was.
Not so much in the comic books, but for sure in that movie.
The Twilight series, he played Alec. He was the twin to, her name's on the tip of my tongue.
I've seen them.
Ooh, that's going to bug me.
Yeah.
Dakota Fanning.
Okay, there we are.
Forever.
One last final movie mention that I'm going to throw in there just because I really liked it. Don't know if everyone else did, but he was in a movie called Final Girl.
Oh, okay.
Which is, kind of a horror movie. And
when I read that, all I could think about was the Final Girls podcast.
Right, of course, yeah. We'll send him away with a Final Girl send-off, and who we got next?
Vera Farmiga. She was far more interesting than I ever thought she was going to be when I was looking up some information on her. She's born to Ukrainian parents, and she didn't speak English until she was 6.
I know, that's pretty awesome.
So
that she speaks English so well. I mean, granted, she's had, how many years now to speak English?
And then she thought about being an optometrist, but then she ended up settling on acting. She said one day she was benched during a soccer game. She decided to try for a role at a school play, and then she landed some television roles, landed a role with Heath Ledger, who was then unknown, in the 1997 show Roar, which I've never heard of, but that was kind of her first major television role. Of course, she's been in Law & Order.
Of course she has. I was waiting for that to come up.
And she's been in The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2.
Kind of the whole Conjuring and the few spin-off, like The Nun and Annabelle.
Bates Motel she was in. Hawkeye.
The Departed, also The Orphan.
She does a lot of horror. She usually plays a motherly figure.
Yeah. I think without the Conjuring franchise, she may not have gotten as many horror roles.
Sure, but that landed her quite a few.
But because she was playing as Lorraine Warren, which... Don't get me started on them. But anyway, her sister is Taissa Farmiga.
She's also a highly skilled pianist. She plays guitar. She speaks French and Spanish in addition to English and Ukrainian.
Is there anything she can't do?
I know, right? Wait, there's more. Wait. There's more. She was a semi-professional Ukrainian folk dancer as well.
I'll be goddamn.
Yeah. She's an interesting
There's
lady.
Some talents over there.
Yeah. Let's move on to Chaz Palminteri. He kind of has that mob boss look to him, doesn't he?
He gets cast as a mobster so often. He's from the Bronx, so he's got that natural Bronx accent.
He looks mobby.
He looks
dark
mobby.
hair.
Now,
Italian.
Leia, when you see Chaz Palminteri, are you like me and always assume he's not very tall?
No.
Man, for some reason.
You just get this impression he's not very tall?
I get the impression he's, taller than me because most people are. But I don't imagine that he's 6'3".
I would have said 5'8", 5'9".
Yeah, sure. Like higher end of the 5s.
Yeah.
Probably not breaking 6. And he's used his size to his advantage when he was first starting out in acting.
Yeah.
He was a bouncer and a doorman.
He played bouncers, huh?
No, he was literally a bouncer and
at a club.
doorman at a club, yeah.
He actually kind of got his fame in a really interesting way.
Mhm.
In 1988, he wrote himself a play entitled A Bronx Tale,
Yeah.
which Robert De Niro had interest in. Robert De Niro wanted to try his hand at directing, so he made the movie A Bronx Tale in 1993.
Mhm.
And Chaz didn't want to sell out. People were trying to buy, and he wasn't
for a
going
big
to
lump sum.
for a
too.
lot, millions.
Yes.
And he wanted to star in it himself. And his wife, Gianna Palminteri, she was in it as well. Good for
Yeah,
him
no,
for
that's-
sticking with it, and because now he got to be in it too.
That's the way it should have been. I mean, honestly, when he was doing A Bronx Tale as a play, it was a one-man show. He was playing every part. To take that away from him when it comes to a movie, it was written by him about him. It's
Well, and that
kind
was
of
the
a
other
story
thing,
of his
is
life.
if he had sold it, he
Mhm.
probably wouldn't have had as much creative expression in that. He wouldn't have been able to. It would have been a completely different movie.
Bronx Tale was the first time I remember seeing him.
But it made a name for him.
I think it was just before Usual Suspects, which is probably the first place a lot of other people may notice him. But
Yeah, he was also in a movie called Bullets Over Broadway, Once More with Feeling.
Mhm.
He was also in the TV series Modern Family as a guy named Shorty, which is hilarious because he's 6'3".
So damn tall. And he does a lot of voiceover for animated films too, because he's got, like you said, he's got that voice.
He does have that voice.
He's got a voice that plays well. He looks like a mobster and he sounds like a mobster. So he does voice work for a lot of mobster characters.
Yeah. The only other one that I wanted to just mention was Michael Kudlitz. He was in The Walking Dead. If anybody doesn't remember, he was the tall redhead.
Abraham,
yeah. Wayne Kramer said that he tries to cast him in all of his films because he loves him so much. So, all right, so let's talk about some of the acclaim or lack thereof.
This film is one that I really enjoyed, and I spread it around to a lot of people who were willing to watch it when it first came out.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them enjoyed it, some did not. And I understand this movie has subject matter that can be really off-putting.
Really hard for some people.
Child peril.
Child abuse, domestic abuse, battery, guns is not something new.
Yeah.
It's in a lot of movies, but it's pretty intense.
Yeah.
And I don't think the trailers helped that at all either.
No.
They couldn't show any of the child stuff, which is kind of pivotal to the movie.
Whole movie. Yeah.
It's kind of like what the whole movie's about.
The MPAA does not allow displays of child peril in trailers.
Yeah. And so people would watch this trailer for this movie, and if they liked the trailer, they saw something they didn't expect to see.
Yeah.
If they didn't like the trailer, they probably missed out on something they may have liked.
Yeah. Trailers are supposed to market the movie you're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
These trailers did not market this movie.
No, and it's unfortunate because there's movies that, like Tarantino's come out with, and, the trailers are great, but they didn't have child, peril in them, and this movie, that's what this movie's about. Is children in peril. And what will other people do to protect them, to save them, to find them, to help them.
The thing that kicks the whole sequence off is the fact that there's a child who's being abused in a home. Were it not for that, the key event would not take place.
No. Anyway, production budget, $15 million, which is a good budget. Sadly, it didn't make it back.
Not at all.
Domestic box office was, just shy of $7 million. Opening weekend, it did about $3 million. So, I mean, all in all, it didn't make its money back. But what this movie is really good for is its DVD sales.
Oh, yeah.
So it did make back a lot of money after the fact.
It gained a really tight cult following on DVD.
Yeah. Wayne had said that he was disappointed with the box office reviews and how much money that was bringing in, but super, super pleased with the DVD sales because they did really well.
In fact, Wayne and Paul Walker were both really saddened by the performance of the film.
Mm-hmm.
But both of them had gotten calls personally from some pretty big names in Hollywood actually congratulating them on the film because those names really liked it. I mean, Tarantino called Paul Walker.
And Paul said he was
him
coming back from dinner, feeling really depressed and sad about the movie. And he came back to a voicemail from Quentin Tarantino telling him how awesome he was in film, how great the film was, not to let the haters hate. And he loved the film. And he said that was really something he needed to hear. And it really invigorated his faith in what he was doing. And I thought that was really nice of a director to tell somebody that, you don't get to hear those things. And it's just nice to hear.
Wayne Kramer said that the film didn't actually receive an official premiere. It just opened, and the first showing where they kind of had their quote-unquote premiere. And Wayne Kramer said, unfortunately, him and the cast and crew were not the only people in the theater, but basically the only people in the theater.
That's so disappointing.
So it's sad, especially when you put so much time and energy into a movie, a project. Paul Walker has been on record as saying this was his favorite role.
Both Cameron Bright and Alex Newberger, who is the other little boy,
Nicky,
they were both nominated for the 2007 Best Performance in a Feature Film, Leading Young Actor at the Young Artists Awards. So they both got recognition.
They got some recognition.
Which is nice, because I feel like they both deserved it. It was nominated for the 2006 Most Underrated Movie of the Year at the Golden Schmoes Awards.
All right, I guess that's something.
That's something. And then Paul Walker was nominated for the 2006 Most Annoying Fake Accent for a Male at the Stinkers Bad Movie Awards. So, you're not going to get all good ones, but, recognition is recognition.
The glory of an award.
I didn't think it was that bad.
No,
but
I didn't think it was too bad.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not from the Bronx.
Overall, the film got really bog standard mixed reviews. It was often praised for its cinematography and its creative use of camera work. The cast and crew got kind of positive marks from reviewers for their acting and all that.
A little backstory for the film, too. New Line actually acquired the rights during the post-production of the film. They had an issue with the creative side and the marketing and distribution side of the company. Creative side really appreciated the film. They really saw all the potential in the film. They really loved the film. But then the marketing and distribution side of the film hated it, and they couldn't figure out how they were going to even market it. Yeah, so there was a little bit of conflict there, and the conflict is actually what caused the studio to really not stand behind the film. The critics, with the exception of a few notable voices like Roger Ebert and Andrew Sarris, went out of their way to kill the film.
Yeah.
The MPAA wouldn't allow the child endangerment stuff. That didn't help either.
Wayne Kramer, when the film was submitted for rating review by the MPAA,
he was shocked.
He was expecting an NC-17.
I would have, too.
He was expecting to have to cut some stuff out, especially the big child endangerment sequence.
Oh, yeah.
According to Wayne Kramer, that scene was left in with very special intent. Like, it had a purpose.
Yeah.
But yeah, it came back with an R, so he didn't actually have to cut anything out of it.
A director envisions a certain movie, and that's what they want. And when the MPAA comes in and chops it all up, it's so heartbreaking.
Yeah. Got a few taglines for you, Leia.
Okay.
For the most part, the taglines seem appropriate for this one. First one I got for you is, if anything can go wrong, it will, and at the worst possible time. Pretty appropriate. The next one I got is, it's find the gun or death, and every bullet leaves a trail.
Yeah. So he's digging bullets out of holes and out of walls and things like that. Yeah.
Pretty well spot on with those. None of them are really flashy or appealing.
They make sense.
This movie, it's got a lot of offensive language in it. It does have the use of the N-word quite often, but that's not the number I'm bringing up here. This used the F-word 315 times.
I read 330.
330, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Either way, it still puts this movie at number 21
on the list of most used. If that offends you.
When I thought about where this movie would fall on that list, I did not expect it to fall particularly where it did.
Yeah.
It sets it behind some films like Straight Outta Compton, Alpha Dog, Casino, Anora, which just came out this year, Uncut Gems, Wolf of Wall Street. But that number sets it above Goodfellas, Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, The Big Lebowski, and The Departed.
No way.
All films known
for their use
of the F word.
It's interesting, too, because we use that word so often here.
We do.
That I didn't even notice that they had used it 330 times. I mean, that was pretty much all the dialogue.
That might be why we didn't notice it.
I know, right?
So much.
Didn't notice it. Sorry. It's just part of everyday language in our household.
It really is. Speaking of the F word, the sex scene between Paul Walker and Vera Farmiga's character. In a lot of the interviews I read, Paul Walker in particular said there was no prosthesis, there was no
dental dam,
no cover, no nothing. He said he just kind of went for it.
Yeah.
He said, but he didn't There was no penetration.
Yeah, no,
There was
he went
nothing
to
like
the
that.
side.
He said it was just to the side of it.
Yeah.
Really going for the action,
Yeah.
though.
He said, well, why wouldn't I? She's a beautiful woman.
Beautiful woman.
He said, and it was a room full of men,
Yeah.
and she was the brave one, not me.
Yeah, right.
She was the brave one, and I had to give her credit for that.
And it was the first day of shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a huge
Contrast.
side-by-side contrast between her character and the character next door.
Oleg's mother,
Mia. Yeah. Teresa's character, on one hand, is an American woman. She's confident, she's strong, she's outspoken, it's the American dream she's living, right? Like, granted, it's not high-end living, but she's free. And then there's Mia next door, and she's from Ukraine, and she's repressed. She's in an abusive relationship, and she feels like she's deserved that because she was rescued. She was saved from being a prostitute.
Yeah, she was sex trafficked. At first. And
Yugorsky escort service offered to bring girls over with promise of big bucks.
Anzor
saved her.
Risked his reputation to free her from that.
So Anzor make me wife. Big man Yugorsky can't kill his nephew's wife.
It was meant to be that way because Wayne, the director, wanted that contrast because he comes from South Africa and he didn't have the same story to him, obviously, but it's like that American dream where when he was in South Africa, he remembers wanting to see movies and America was so amazing, you know, and that was where you wanted to be. And he said, and to this day, I still think America's the best place on earth, despite all of its problems. That was something he wanted to put in the film to show that contrast. So I thought that was really...
The whole American dream thing, every character in this film represents something. It's funny because there's two visions of the movie happening simultaneously. There's the vision of Joey Gazelle's adventure, where it's grounded in real life. You know, everything is very realistic. And then there's Oleg's adventure, which is very like covered in fairy tale and mysticism. And so on the Joey side, Wayne Kramer had said that Anzor represents the failure of the American dream. He's beaten down.
Thinks America's the promised land, but it has not done him well.
He watches that Cowboys movie because the Duke, you know, obviously is a quote unquote like an American icon. You know, the cowboy is an American icon. In his mind, in Anzor's vision of the Cowboys, the Duke doesn't die. He lives forever. He's a legend. In the real version that he has to watch in America, he's saddened because his icon, his hero, the person he looked up to when he was a boy in Russia, that character dies, you know, and there's no changing that. It's just sadness. He's lost his reputation among the mob family that he's with, taking care of a child that's not his. He didn't achieve anything. His dream has died. It's a very stark contrast between Joey, who also is a proud man. Both characters are proud to be in this country, but Anzor is
failed by that, and Joey has all the opportunities, yet he's still a freaking mobster.
Still a mobster.
Chaz played Detective Rydell in the film. The character's name is actually a tip of the hat to the filmmaker Mark Rydell, who directed The Cowboys, which, you know, Anzor is obsessed with. So Wayne actually wrote the part of Shelley Caplow in The Cooler with Chaz in mind, but Chaz was unavailable at the time. And Chaz had just directed Paul in a film called Noel. Wayne called him and asked him what he thought of Paul when he was doing Running Scared. Chaz right away said, cast him. He's terrific. He can do it. You'll love working with him. And at the same time, I guess Paul had called up Chaz to ask him whether he should do Running Scared because he had a lot of respect for Chaz and, you know, trusted that he would give him the right opinion. Sure. And Chaz said to Paul, are you crazy? You have to do this film. So he vouched for him.
In the beginning of the movie, he shows a lot of disdain for he just doesn't like Anzor and his family next door. They're very antithetical to what he wants in his life. We don't realize it at first, but we see Joey's dad in Joey's home, and he's disabled. He doesn't seem to be
he's not all
cautious of a whole lot.
Yeah.
Later on, it gets revealed to us that, is this spoiler, you think?
I think this whole thing is going to be spoiler.
Okay. Let's just say, from here on out, spoilers are going to abound.
Extra spoilers
Especially
abound.
Since we get into a lot of the symbolism. Spoiler chance, get out now if you need to. Otherwise, stick around with us.
You had your chance to watch it before you came in here.
We gave you a week.
Gave you a week.
My stomach hurts. Can I go to the bathroom?
Sure. I'll just hold on to this. You go outside, you take a right, and then a left.
Hurry up, though, you're missing out.
Wayne Kramer has said that Joey, it's not that he dislikes Oleg.
Mm-hmm.
He dislikes what Oleg represents.
Right.
And that is an abused boy, because Joey was abused by his father as a boy.
On the morning of his 14th birthday, he walks into his old man's room with the baseball bat. And he Mark McGuire's the fucking living shit out of him.
That's just what caused his dad to be the way he was.
Yes.
But that is also why Joey and Oleg end up bonding at the end, towards the end of the movie.
Yeah, they have a shared past before this trauma, before this traumatic event.
Yeah.
A past that he didn't want to deal with.
He didn't want to deal with it. Yeah.
But now that he's been forced to commingle with it for the entire night,
He has to.
He's sort of dealt with it and resolved it.
Wayne envisioned Oleg as sort of like a Pinocchio character. A lot of the concepts in this film are Grimm's fairy tale type concepts. So he really envisioned Oleg as Pinocchio, where he is on his journey home to a real family where he can be treated like a real boy.
Yeah.
He, right now he's not a real boy because he doesn't have a real family. That's kind of the vision that Wayne had for Oleg.
Along Oleg's journey, when he encounters a situation or he responds to somebody, he seems very wooden, for lack of a better description.
He does, doesn't he?
And
Stiff.
he doesn't seem to respond to anything the way a normal child would. Like when he meets that unhomed crack addict.
Yeah.
I'd be losing my shit if I was
You're just
that
following
age.
him.
He just follows him along, and he ends up in a drug deal.
He was almost like very apathetic, just not emotionally there at all.
Which is kind of the way Pinocchio was.
Kind of the way Pinocchio was, yeah.
That wasn't the last of the fairy tale representation.
We have Davina. She's the hooker, and Teresa. Davina more so than Teresa, but they both represent what the blue fairy from Pinocchio. Both are super strong, tough. They both wear blue. They both represent the forces of good in the film, and they both are on Oleg's side to protect him throughout the film.
Yep. Oleg at one point finds Davina being roughed up by her pimp, and he goes out of his way
to save her.
Yeah. So he pulls the gun on the pimp.
You learned how to use that watch in Sesame Street? You ain't even holding it right.
She finds out his story and helps him out because she feels
Tries
bad
to get
for
him back home.
I'm taking care of him tonight, okay?
Yeah, and then Teresa, of course, she just very motherly in this film. She was always on his side. Took care of him as well.
Absolutely.
And you talked about the pimp Lester. These are all visions of Wayne. You can see it once you start looking at it all.
You can see little bits of it while you're watching
I went to piece
the
it
film.
together watching the film myself.
Can piece it together once you watch the end credits. Are animated.
Oh, right.
And they show the characters from the film in Wayne Kramer's vision.
Yeah. The pimp Lester actually represents the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland, which is so accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, he's eccentric.
He's crazy. He's eccentric. He wears crazy clothes. I mean, he unpredictable.
His emotions change on a whim.
And then Joey, he's kind of like the big bad wolf who turns out to be a sheep. In wolves' clothing. Yeah.
Because when we see him in that hotel room with the drugs, he's the tough guy protector.
He's a bad guy.
Yeah. And then we see him at home and he's a
loving
protector.
father.
He's got this bad guy attitude, but deep down, he's a caring protector.
He talks about going out to kill Oleg and he's going to do whatever it takes, but you get a sense that he would never hurt him, ever.
I don't think there's any reality where that character would have hurt that boy.
No, especially after you see how he treats his own son.
Well, when the first gunshots fire off next door while the gazelles are eating dinner, he runs out the door and Teresa says, "Where are you going?"
Leave it for the cops.
There's a kid in your teeth.
There's a boy over there. There's a child over there. He's on a mission not because of the gun being fired, but because there's a boy
a child that might be in danger. Yeah. Which is interesting to me because Oleg's been in danger this whole time.
Yes.
And he was in denial of it and didn't want to face up or help him with any of that. But this was imminent danger. And it affected his family too. So.
Well, the big bad wolf is kind of split in two characters because there's Joey, but the other version of the big bad wolf, more of a directly just straight big bad wolf, is Anzor. So Anzor's the American dream representation in the Joey real world kind of scenario, but he's a big bad wolf in the Oleg fairy tale representation as well. He's the one that scares you off. The initial villain, he's the
He's the actual big bad wolf,
Yes.
not the big bad wolf.
Yeah.
That's a sheep in wolf's clothing.
Exactly. Yeah. He's the villain big bad wolf.
The two characters I'm going to talk about are Des and Adele. Together they represent the evil witch from Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah.
And what I find most interesting about that is that their whole environment is just so Hansel and Gretel. Instead of candy, it's toys and video games and pretty colors, and it's
the environment is saccharine.
Geez, Adele, I think we picked up a stray.
Indeed. Hello there.
Hi.
And who might you be?
Even the rooms give you an uneasy feeling because they intentionally put no corners on any of the walls. So everything is round in all of the rooms even. While you're in the apartment with them, you feel uncomfortable and something's wrong about them. You don't quite, you have a sense what's going on, but you don't have a full sense. My first thought was they're pedophiles, period.
You were not wrong.
Period. Yeah. That's what I thought. But then you find out later they're actually even doing a big spoiler alert here.
Yeah.
So if you don't want it, the big spoiler, they're also creating snuff films with children.
They're pedophiles and child murderers.
Yeah. Disgusting.
They are the definition of evil.
They are the definition of evil. So Bruce Altman and Elizabeth Mitchell, they're the ones who played Des and Adele.
You're going to say it right now.
Yeah, yep. They were cast kind of late in the process. The initial idea, you're going to love this, is to reteam Kyle MacLachlan and Laura Dern from Blue Velvet. That would have been so cool.
That would have been so cool.
To have them play Des and Adele, yeah.
And it's even more cool because in Twin Peaks, obviously both of those characters were in Twin Peaks as well, but in Twin Peaks, Everett McGill and Wendy Robbie starred in Twin Peaks as Big Ed and Nadine.
Yes.
They were cast by Wes Craven to play Mommy and Daddy in The People Under the Stairs.
Yeah, they were.
I love that connection. So I love David Lynch's stuff so much.
I do too. And the connections are just little Easter eggs you open and they're just so sweet. Yep. So sweet. Kyle was actually open to it, but Laura Dern was not. She didn't want to do it. Wayne had said he had an enormous respect for Bruce Altman and Elizabeth Mitchell. He said, because nobody, and he said, nobody in Hollywood wants to play a pedophile.
Yeah, it's kind of a black mark, man.
That's a black mark for most people. These two went on to do other things that had nothing, I don't associate them with pedophiles. No. Elizabeth Mitchell, I remember her from Lost, the TV series. I've seen Bruce Altman in other things before.
He's been in a lot of
things. But he's been in a lot of other things, and I don't look at him and go, that's the pedophile from Running Scared. Yeah, no. Flawlessly did these roles.
They did great. Someone had to play the role.
Somebody had to. Another kind of cool thing that goes back to this whole Hansel and Gretel idea is that the name on one of the prescription bottles that Oleg is looking at, he's trying to get the predator's address, and he's looking through all these prescription bottles to try to get the address, and he hit his head, and he's having a hard time, looking at him, and he sees on the bottle the name Hansel.
Yeah, Adele Hansel.
On the bottle. So that was another nod to that Hansel and Gretel idea.
Another part that made that scene so creepy was as Oleg's sort of wandering through their home, there's little silhouette pop-ups that you end up seeing and you're left to assume it's Adele and Des sort of creeping on him and watching him from the shadows. So it's these really grotesque,
but they look almost like Nosferatu looking, like fingernails and hunchback. It made even more creepy by the fact that they intentionally created the rooms with no shadows.
Yeah.
There's no shadows in this whole apartment.
It's
so
bright,
shiny, no shadows. And the only shadows you see are these creepy figures in the bathroom. That scene and then the scene with the drugged out drug addict where Oleg's following around, those were both very surreal because the drug addict was moving way faster than a human being would normally move.
Faster. He was whispering the whole time.
And making weird noises.
Yeah, it's very...
Be cool. And let me do all the talking. I'm gonna get you out of here.
It reminded me of the ring wraiths.
Yeah.
From Lord of the Rings.
Both those scenes were very fairy tale-y and weird.
Creepy. Overtly fairy tale.
Yeah. Where you're like, is this real life? Or that scene in general, probably my favorite piece. And it's so out of place in a certain sense because you're running through and trying to find Oleg and you're these mobsters and these gunshots going off and these intense car chases. And then there's this scene.
This weird, really out of place scene.
Yeah. And it's really where Teresa shines.
Lionsgate wanted Wayne Kramer to cut that entire sequence.
Oh, no.
And he said, let's let it go through one testing first. And he said after the testing, the audience was on their feet at the fate of those two characters.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to tell you what happens because you should see that. And you should clap at the end on your own. He wanted that scene in more than any other scene because that scene is pivotal for Teresa.
Mm-hmm.
Not only does it display her as the powerful person that she is, but it gives her a black and white defining line of what's evil because it gives her that chance to say, okay, my husband is a criminal. I know that, and that's wrong, but he does good, not through his crime, of course, but otherwise.
He's a good person in general. Yeah.
These people are evil.
And she even says that in the movie.
I have never seen evil before tonight, Joe. Real fucking evil.
Real evil today.
That's not what I see when I look in your eyes.
Wayne Kramer didn't have a lot of funny scenes in this film.
Not too many.
No. But I think he's got kind of a different kind of sense of humor.
Yeah, I would say different, yes.
He said that the funniest line in the film was when Manny the mechanic asks Lester, the pimp.
Hey, Lester, my man. Ouch. Who got over on you, bro? Some puta whose forwarding address is going to be in 10 different zip codes. All of them dumpsters.
He said the audience did not laugh at that line. He said, so, what do I know about humor?
He found it funny. That's good for him.
He thought that was hilarious. And he said the audience, nobody laughed at that line. It was disappointing for him. You got to also be, I think, involved in the character, and he created those characters. And I think that's part of knowing your characters is that would be funny for your character to say.
I guess another thing to kind of tie together here with Kramer and the different sort of culture, there is no 10-minute version of the Cowboys that exists.
Mm-mm.
However, there is a shortened version that Wayne Kramer actually did see as a child. And it also did, like in the movie, end with the Duke not dying. So he thought that the Duke was supposed to live. So when he came to America and saw the Cowboys, he was like, whoa.
whoa.
This is not supposed to happen. This isn't right. This doesn't go this way. So I think that kind of
that was direct inspiration for that.
Absolutely was directly there. But it is kind of poignant because in the end, the fate that Anzor comes to. So Anzor, through the whole movie, he's a dick.
Oh, total, no redeeming qualities whatsoever.
You're never rooting for Anzor.
No, you want
Not
him
once.
to get what's coming.
Even in the end, still not really rooting for Anzor. But you do have a moment of,
okay, so he's a human being.
He does have a softness.
I think it's a skill that some directors have where they can make evil characters. You can feel for the evil characters. Not every director has that skill.
The whole movie, you see Anzor, and if you think about it from the perspective of he represents the failed American dream, he has one moment where I think he finally feels quote unquote American, like he achieved his dream, because when they're in that hockey rink and he is instructed to shoot Oleg and he doesn't, he opts to instead toss the gun down and walk away. And he's kind of holding his belt like a cowboy would.
Got his shirt off with his
cowboy walk.
John Wayne tattoo on his back. Yeah.
As he's walking away, he gets shot in the back.
Just like John Wayne.
Just like John Wayne did in that movie.
But John Wayne doesn't die.
Anzor dies there on the ice.
Yeah. There's a small part of you that feels, I don't even say bad, but because he got what he deserved. But you can see that he is still a human being and that he still tried to be a good person at some point in his life.
Yeah.
just way too late.
Yeah.
There's an interesting scene in the film where gunfire goes through the two different buildings and he's trying to collect all the evidence, and Paul Walker shows up in two different places. It's actually Paul Walker's brother in the film. So he goes over to Oleg's house to gather the bullets from the wall and everything, and they do it's sort of
a
rewind.
You get to see him piecing together the scene of the crime.
So they pan away from his face and pan right over to the hole in the wall for the house next door or something. So you see what actually happens.
Yeah.
But one of them is him and one of them is his brother in that scene. So they didn't do any crazy special effects for that.
Yeah. It was just a plain cut with Paul Walker and his brother there.
Yeah.
And his brother has been used in a few films when they need a double for Paul Walker. And in fact, most notoriously, he was used in Fast 7 as the final the final goodbye sequence.
You could almost barely not even tell.
Yeah, no, they look very much alike.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can't say they didn't put any CGI on his face
Yeah,
at
no,
all
they
either,
they
though,
did
so.
map they did map Paul Walker's face
Yeah.
onto him in that scene in particular.
Yeah.
I'm sure they didn't have to do a whole lot of work.
No.
At the time when this film was written and filmed, we were just a few years off of 9/11, the terrorist event in New York. There's a sequence where Joey finally tracked down Oleg, got, taking him back home. Joey says, hey, let's put on the radio. What kind of music you listen to? And Oleg responds,
Kvasha. It's my mother's tape from Russia.
Joey's like, well, you're American.
Yeah.
You should listen to American music. Then and now, I thought that was kind of offensive. It's like you're suppressing this person's culture. That's kind of a dick move. And then he goes on to almost like forcefully berate Oleg and he's like,
say I'm an American. You say it. Say I'm an American.
Forcefully. He's like, say you're American. And Oleg finally says, well, I'm an American. And again, then and now, I thought that was kind of a jerky move.
Yeah.
But to Wayne Kramer, who wrote it, in his mind, it was a source of pride. It was a pride to be American.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a way of Joey saying, hey, I accept you.
You belong. I was going to say it's a way to put him into a belonging.
Yeah.
You're part of us.
Yeah. You're
we accept
part of my
you.
tribe.
Yeah.
Now, So it from different perspectives, obviously you're going to get different things out of that scene, especially given the political climate now.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's extra cringy.
Yeah. But it wasn't meant to be that way.
It wasn't meant to be. It wasn't
meant to be like, let go of all of your roots or anything, but it was meant to be like, you're part of us now.
Yeah.
Like, why would you tell somebody to not do that?
It seemed really forceful.
Yeah.
And I
super passionate about it.
I still don't I don't like the scene. I really wish it wasn't in there. Not my film.
Yeah.
I didn't write it.
Yeah. This is another major spoiler, but it has a feel-good ending, which I didn't like either.
I agree. I didn't care for the ending.
Yeah.
I also didn't care for the really out-of-place opening, where it was that sort of flash forward where it's Joey carrying Oleg out of the diner. It just felt really unnecessary. I don't like the ending. Don't like the beginning. Don't like that American sequence. The rest of the film, top-notch.
Top-notch. And if you can handle all of the violence.
All of it, all the child violence on children. But Leia, I think we're good.
Yeah.
I think we got our points across, right? We got Wayne Kramer's points across.
I was really happy to do this one because I feel like this is another movie where as long as you can get past the violence against children and the violence against women, as long as you get past that, it really is a very strong movie that a lot of people don't give any notice to.
I hope if you did watch it, I hope you enjoyed it.
And if you turned it off, I understand.
Yeah, we totally get that. Not every film is for everybody.
Yeah.
But with that, Leia, let's close it up, yeah?
Yeah, I do recommend you all hydrate and have a good stretch after the run.
It was exhausting. It was a really grand exercise, and of course, for your health.
Yeah, for your health. Steve Rule, for your health.
Steve Rule, for your health.
Before you leave, as always, please check us out at themovietheaterlobby.com. Email us at themovietheaterlobby@gmail.com and find us on socials at The Movie Lobby on Blue Sky, as well as The Movie Theater Lobby on YouTube.
And please, wherever you listen to us, just give us a star rating. I want to beg for the magic number of stars. But no, just be honest.
Please, because we won't get better if you're not honest.
I rate every podcast that I listen to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying everybody should. I mean, I think everybody should.
Are you honest?
I am completely honest.
All right, there you go. There you guys have it.
I always hate reviews where people downgrade something because of their personal taste.
Yeah.
I don't think that should go into a review. But technicality, like from the technical standpoints, the sound, is Brandon really obnoxious? Maybe. In that case,
content,
yes.
Is there good content? Yeah.
I'm conscious enough to realize
you're not everyone's cup of tea.
Some content out there is not made for me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to downrate something because I happen to listen to a podcast that was never made for me to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
I like to rate things on technical aspects rather than my personal opinion.
Sure.
But again, rate however you want. I'm not your boss. Please rate us. Review us if you want. Leave comments. Like we said before, we'll read out your comments.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not afraid to do that as long as they're not jackassy comments.
Yes.
We don't need negativity. We don't need cruelty. But if it's funny, great. If it's completely off topic, not even anything related to the show at all,
fine.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. We'll still read it. But yeah, share us with friends, family, enemies, whoever you want.
The dog.
The dog. Yeah, let our podcast play for your dog.
Yeah. Or listen to it with him.
Or listen to it together. What better way? With all that, find me, Brandon, on Blue Sky at BrandMC if you're so inclined. Otherwise, the show is there. The show is probably more interesting than my personal one anyway. But
doubt it.
Leia, where are you available?
You can find me, Leia McClevey, at LM Nerd Room on all of the previously mentioned socials and at lmnerdroom@gmail.com.
Perfect, Leia. And of course, since we've somehow just kind of designated this to a task for you, so how about you hit these fine folks with a coming soon?
Of course I will. Next week, we go from hero in a car to a villain in a car in Quentin Tarantino's half of the Grindhouse double feature, Death Proof. I love that film. Bunch of awesome, badass women.
Yes, absolutely. Again, as always, thank everybody for listening. Thank you for giving us your time and attention. Thank you if you are a every week listener or an occasional one. If you just pick and choose and find your favorites, that's great too.
Yep, we just appreciate it.
Yep, we just appreciate your listens.
We appreciate your appreciation.
Of course. All the appreciations. And Leia, of course, as always, thank you.
And thank you, Brandon.
And we'll see you next week on
The Movie Theater Lobby.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Now I'm gonna put a smile on your face, boy. Cheek to cheek. You're gonna be the happiest little brat in school. Say cheese.